Mr Deputy Speaker, on the 13th of December last year, I was kindly granted an adjournment debate on the potential harms that emergency use experimental mRNA COVID-19 vaccines cause. It's fair to say that night my life changed. During that speech, in the evidence data I presented to the House, which no one has effectively rebutted, I highlighted to the Minister the scale of harms that the experimental vaccines have caused and continue to cause. In giving that speech to an almost empty chamber on this most important of issues, quite literally life and death, two things happened to me immediately. First, I was cancelled by the mainstream media, despite sending a data sheet in the wake of the debate, scientifically evidencing every point that I made. Not one media organisation wanted to talk about the issue of serious harms or death occurring as a result of the mRNA vaccines. Mr Deputy Speaker, I fully expect that they will show the same level of disinterest in today's debate. It's what we've come to expect from a media more interested in navel-gazing at the pontifications of Britain's foremost football pundit instead of the horror and tragedy of excess deaths taking place before their very eyes. Stephen sadly died 10 days after receiving his first dose of AstraZeneca. As previously, any death within a fortnight of receiving a vaccine was regarded as an unvaccinated death. His death was originally attributed to natural causes. Will Government issue a statement and also release details of other such cases of situations where people sadly died within 14 days of vaccination?
MPs have spoken from across this House on many occasions about medical licensing and medical device licensing, process and policies of the JCVI, our COVID response, and compensation for the vaccine injured, most recently raised on the floor of this House by one of our former Attorney Generals. These are totally legitimate and correct debates to have. Parliamentary scrutiny and debate is one of the many checks and balances that we have in this country to ensure that we're taking the right course of action on these and all other matters. It's what many colleagues do. What other colleagues are not doing is promoting false propaganda, which is widely known to originate from the Kremlin, abusing and undermining colleagues and the occupant of the chair, and using the autopsy of a 14-year-old girl as clickbait on their social media feed, all of which the honourable member has done in the past week, and he might like to reflect on that.
Out of that poisonous cesspit of the right-wing conspiracy theorist ecosystem in the United States, and I'm a huge supporter of our alliance with the US, but within that there is an appalling subculture of those who live by conspiracy theories, and the anti-vaccine campaign is one of those, with detrimental impact on health.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, but has he read the pandemic treaty proposed by the WHO, and has he also read the amendments to the international health regulations that have to be looked at alongside that very important document?
Yeah, you mean this is the request for this to be drawn up, not finalised yet, I don't think. This is a request to be drawn up by the previous Prime Minister, the member for Uxbridge. Is that what we're talking about? This is into fantasy land. The ability, as we saw, unfortunately, during the pandemic, the ability to get coherence across countries, even sometimes, unfortunately, even to move vaccines, is difficult. And there is the need to move at speed, because we absolutely saw the speed at which the pandemic, this was a COVID pandemic, it could equally have been an avian influenza pandemic. Indeed, there's a huge amount of similarities between... Again.
Yeah. I thank the honourable for giving way. He says they have to move at speed. Does he support the fact that Pfizer moved at the speed of science to the effect that they never even tested whether the vaccine was actually stop transmission or contraction of the virus? And with this House mandated people to lose their jobs for not taking a vaccine which was unproven, unsafe, and was actually never going to stop them transmitting the virus.
It certainly wasn't unproven, certainly wasn't unsafe, and had a huge beneficial impact across the world. And unfortunately, we do have some, a very limited number, and we all get letters on this, of those who wallow in this realm of the conspiracy theories.
You know, when you look at the COVID inquiry that started now, they're requiring all participants to take lateral flow tests in 2023. Yes, the bubble surrounding the Westminster political elite has become absolutely opaque. The public can't understand it, and they can't understand the public. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm afraid the bubble has well and truly burst. But the consensus still around the lockdowns that they were sensible, practical, acceptable for the public, and the only discussion ever allowed in this place is how long the lockdown should be. But lockdowns and restrictions, they weren't for anybody at number 10. They were only for the little people. So if the data had really indicated that the virus was the most vicious threat to the country's ever faced in our lifetime, they're the words of the former Prime Minister himself, then why were those who were seeing the data firsthand and were privy to all the later briefings continually breaching their own rules? While they locked us out in our houses, they went to parties. When they forced us to wear masks, they broke out the party hats. They closed our schools and they opened the bottles. Well, I'm glad they had such a good time, because the rest of our experience and collective memories, I've already given way to the honourable gentleman. The rest of our experiences of the collective memories of lockdown were not that great, to be honest. It was isolation, destroyed livelihoods, missed goodbyes to loved ones, and a new relationship with our state that bore an uncomfortable resemblance to history lessons in modern China, something none of us ever dreamed of would be true in present-day Britain. We're all human, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with all our human failings, and our health is incredibly important to us all. And we all welcome modern advances in medicine which over the centuries have reduced the nastier realities of life. But we never wanted this. What has happened at the top of our government? Rule makers of the COVID regulations deemed that their work meetings were more important than our children's education. It's almost as if they wanted to make incompetence endemic. We can never give the children back the years they lost of their schooling. We can never give the public back the time we robbed from them. But we can give them answers and legislative assurance that we'd never, ever replay this fiasco. And now, finally, Mr. Speaker, let's sign the whole thing off as a job badly done, a chapter to consign to history, a stark lesson of how not to govern. The people of North West Cheshire feel betrayed, and they have been betrayed, and it must never, ever happen again.
Gentle reminder, it is this report that we're talking about today and its findings. So if people could perhaps, even if they've got speeches that they wrote 2 days, 3 days ago, and it contains things that aren't relevant to the report, please could they lose those pages and concentrate on this, please.
Mr. Speaker, in 2014 this House voted to end the Liverpool care pathway. However, in April 2020 it appears it was reintroduced under the guise of NG 163, a treatment for agitation and breathlessness. So can we have a debate on NG 163 and why this national health guidance ordered the use of huge volumes of benzodiazepines and opiates, which are respiratory suppressants for people who are already breathless?
Leader of the House.
Well, I shall certainly make sure that the honourable gentleman's remarks today have been heard by the Health Secretary. The Liverpool care pathway was ended, and there was a great deal of focus on what really good quality end-of-life care should look like. And of course, part of that was the government's support and elevation of the profile of the role of hospices as well, which I know all members of this House greatly value. But I shall make sure the Health Secretary's heard his concerns.
Luke Pollock.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. The Leader of the House and I both represent...
The fact is that the same people who took the unprecedented powers to suspend our freedoms knew that these measures were nothing short of political posturing. They knew they were pointless. If the risks were really what they said they were, and the science of the effectiveness of the lockdowns were that demonstrable, then surely they would have been the most...
Order. Mr. Bridgen. Mr. Bridgen, you heard what I said to Mr. Seeley. We are talking about the contents of the report, and you're going way wider than that now.